Hello, this is Jerry Mitchell, and we're back with another episode of Libertarian Censored Podcast, going over all the posts on the Libertarian Censored subreddit. Let's get right into it. So first we have melting. Fossil fuels have made extreme heat 35 times more likely in North America from MotherJones.com by FuckTimBeck6969. And I said, yeah, I like what Phantasma said here. The fuck, why is Mother Jones climate change garbage? Being linked in a libertarian sub, and I said, most people here are just progressives who got banned from the other subreddits that shall not be named. So it's all really just more of a progressive subreddit than libertarian one, I would say. The climate might be changing, but fear-mongering, stuff like this is definitely, I think, being overstated. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Supreme Court deals another blow to American democracy from thehill.com by FuckTimBeck6969, and I said, r/politics is that way. Honestly, that could be my reply to pretty much any post over here other than my own, and a few other exceptions. This article and its oak are all pretty much just calls for Biden to pack the court, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have one of the tenets of critical theory is that history is a story and stories can be rewritten from the red-headed libertarian on Twitter, and I posted that. And they had, and their tweet continues. When I discuss history, I cross-reference source documents and use archaeological finds and anthropological data. Here's your pre-reminder that the 69 Project was make-believe. And then she posted a tweet from Nicole Hannah-Jones, who said she was the one who really led the 69 Project. She said, I always said the 69 Project is not history. It's a work of journalism that explicitly seeks to challenge the national narrative and therefore the national memory. The project has always been as much about the present as it is the past. And I said, who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past. George Orwell, 1984. And I also added the left. OMG, revisionist history like the lost cause of the Confederacy is the worst. And I said, me, what about the 1619 Project? And they said, left. That's good revisionist history, bigot. So, that just goes to show you the left can ultimately, it's ultimately so in control of the narrative at this point. I think that's one of the things I'm most concerned about, just how in control of the narrative they can get when it comes to the justification of censoring anyone who dissents. And, yeah, that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have, government can impose morality from Rothmus on Twitter, and that's a cartoon of Moses speaking up, going to like a school superintendent or something, and she says, "Oh, government can't impose morality," and they have a bunch of signs like "Bring Back Roe," "Trans rights are human rights," "Gun-free zone," "Stop hate crimes," "Black Lives Matter," the modern pride flag, gender-neutral restroom, all that. And I said, the government does have a religion on top of statism. It's called secular humanism. That enables the state to justify what is seen as progressive because justify pushing what is seen as progressive because, it's technically not a religion. And that's why I think, increasingly, I do think we should have separation of church and state, but I think, anything ideological might be it should be included in that as well. And increasingly the state is allowed to push ideological things as long as they're not related to religion. And that's something that I think we need to say, if it quacks like a duck and walks like a duck, it's pretty much a duck. And, we should say, all these progressive things is pretty much a religion and needs to be treated as such. And that's my thoughts on that issue. The government shouldn't be enforcing morality. That's my thoughts there. Then we have free markets mean freedom from Tom 13. That's crosswords from the funny meme subreddit. And then it says, if you think sex workers sell their bodies, but manual laborers do not, your view of labor is colored by your more realistic view of sexuality. And I agree with that. Ultimately, if people want to pay for something, I think they should be able to pay for it. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have shutting down the Department of Education is what libertarians have been pushing for since day one of the creation of the Department of Education, from being libertarian on X. And I posted that, and that was Trump saying he was going to shut down one of his speeches. And I said, he already had a full term to shut down, not really buying it. Politicians are just going to say whatever people want to hear, and then not do it when they get into office. And that's my thought on that issue. Then we have libertarians are unable to grasp the notion that some things are good and some things are bad, and the government should promote good things and not bad things. and that was Eudaimonia quote tweeting Ryan Graham, "If the Ten Commandments belong in public schools, then so does old Bahamut, or Baphomet. I think that's one of the satanic things." I said, good and bad can be relative between different people, though. And, that's why I don't think the state should be enforcing what's good and what's bad. I think people should be determining for themselves what's good and what's bad and act from there, not have the state enforcing what's good and what's bad. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have magic words from Nathan RH, and this was a self-post that they made, and they said, "Talk is cheap. When there is a significant power gap between two parties, the weak party can lie. Misinformation is the simplest and most effective tool a child can wage against the parent. If you cannot complete on the field of logos, the only leaves pathos nephos. If we were to split all the people you ever met into two groups, smart and dumb, the dumb must be gullible. A sucker is born every minute. Which of a two-party switch would protest if intelligence was required to vote? Racism, Zionism, and nationalism are all bigotries. They are always useless. One cannot insert a bigotry and make a decent conclusion from it. There will be numerous exceptions. Bigotry is simply stupidity. Any sorting by race is racist. The phylogeny itself is useless. Have a cabinet labeled race at all, and only garbage goes in. Race is an artificial construct. There is no edge of a race. It doesn't taper. There is no middle either. One would have to name an individual to be in the middle, and then you might as well adapt individualism in the place of racism. Best not even have a file labeled race. It's the same with Zionism and nationalism. National lines are arbitrary. A real cowboy and no Apache are the same one side of the U.S. line or the other. That's Old West canon. State lines are burned to western states and their watersheds. Both Fredonia and Colorado City appear on the Arizona side of the U.S. line. Fredonia because a free woman fought to use the U.S. line to escape polygamy. Then Colorado City is also Arizona because Utah outlawed it. Because authoritarianism is weak, it uses magic words to deceive bigots. Zionists get triggered on their bigotry. Racists react to racial words. Critical race theory. Critical means pay attention. Race means bigotry. Theory is a word because traditionally don't use correctly. There are free trigger words for fools. Magic words, a string of free words for the value of their pathos nephos, not for their literal logos meaning. And, I'd agree with some of that. Ultimately, everyone's going to try and sell you authoritarianism, I think, in their own way. And I think that's what that post is very much getting at. I think, if you want to justify telling someone else what to do, I think you should be able to do that. But this being said, all authoritarianism is important to remember that. And that's my thought on that issue. Then we have taxing unrealized gains is complex and wrong-headed by Lemon Line Light. And that was, and then they said from The Economist, how tax billionaires and how not to, emphasis added. Going by one broad definition of income that combines consumption and someone's change in net worth, America's best heeled pay just a few cents on every dollar of their fortunes. Lately, those fortunes have ballooned thanks to a soaring stock market. One study found that unrealized capital gains account for $6 trillion of the $11 trillion in wealth held by the richest Americans. Cash-strapped governments want to get their hands on a slice of these riches. President Joe Biden is promising to find $500 billion over 10 years for social programs by charging a 25% tax on the unrealized capital gains of individuals who are worth $100 million or more. It's easy to understand why the world's non-multimillionaires want to soak the very rich. It's equally easy to grasp the appeal for governments, which the wealthy are playing for fools by coming up with clever ways to live in the lap of luxury without even realizing any capital gains. One of these maneuvers in America is to buy assets, offer these as collateral for loans, and roll over the loans until their death. And at that point, any capital gains accrued over the owner's lifetime are zeroed out, and the clock starts away from anew for their heirs, who then themselves borrow and die, as this perfectly legal device is known. However, taxing unrealized gains is complex and wrong-headed. Taxes should be simple to administer and collect. Ideally, they should also raise revenue while distorting behavior as little as possible. Taxing unrealized gains fails on each of these counts. Calculating someone's net worth is nightmarishly complicated, even once at their death, let alone every year. America's Internal Revenue Service took 12 years to evaluate Michael Jackson's estate. France, Sweden, and a few other European countries that have tried to levy wealth taxes have abandoned their efforts after generating lots of administrative headaches but little actual revenue. Taxing unrealized gains would also cause wild swings in liabilities of people who own volatile assets. Mr. Biden's proposal, which sets the tax over 5 years, smooths out some of this volatility, but some taxpayers would still fail to get a rebate for their unrealized losses. That could discourage angel investors and other risk takers from backing promising ventures whose stratospheric valuation could suddenly collapse and which can be hard to price. In America, taxing unrealized gains may also be unconstitutional. And then they added, after the Economist published this article, the Supreme Court ruled narrowly that the mandatory repatriation tax, a one-time tax on retained earnings, is constitutional. Liberal groups celebrated victory because the decision did not preemptively roll out a wealth tax, according to the New York Times, but did show a solid four justices firmly opposed such a tax, and two more who appeared skeptical. Where do you stand on taxing unrealized gains in the wealth tax? And my reply was, always look forward to your post. It's nice to see someone else here who's actually libertarian here. And my thoughts on that are, I think if people, we shouldn't be taxing. We should only be taxing finite income if we are taxing at all. I personally wouldn't tax at all. I would only have voluntary taxation. But I don't think we should be taxing unrealized gains, especially because those are just figurative, not objective. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have New Virginia law, will anyone harvest roadkill any time of year, from Reason.com, and I posted that, and I said, I've never eaten roadkill before, but I think if people want to eat it, that they should be able to, and that's my thoughts on that issue. I personally wouldn't eat bugs either, but I believe that people should have the freedom to eat whatever they want, and that's my thoughts there. And we have why college towns are disappearing, from Something Different Films on YouTube, and I posted that, and I said, I took a graduate level class at the school we talked about in Vienna and Clarion. Although I've never been to the town and indeed anywhere in that part of the state, I had my class online. Regardless, as I have said before in the past, if you are not in a field like STEM or medical, there is little practical point in going to college, since you can get pretty much the same stuff online for free. If I could do it again, I don't think I would do college. It really is just an exercise in learning to bullshit. Learning on the job is probably a better alternative anyway. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Democrats ramp up efforts to block RFK Jr. from appearing on ballots across the nation, from CNN, and I posted that, and I said, I quoted some of the article, Matt Bennett, Executive Vice President at Third Way, a Biden-aligned group opposing third-party candidates, argue Democrats have as much of a right to challenge Kennedy as he does to run for office. And I said, what world we live in? It's a Third Way, a Biden-aligned group. It's against third-party candidates. You'd think they'd be for them with the name Third Way. And I added, they can't be against democracy, though. It's in the party name. Sarcasm. And that's my thought on that issue. Then we have U.S. regulators tried 4 big bank living wills. FDIC escalates city concerns, from Reuters.com by Ninja Lover. And they added U.S. bank regulators ordered Bank of America, Citigroup, Goldman Sachs, and JP Morgan Chase and Friday to bolster plans for how they could be safely resolved in bankruptcy. And FDIC escalated its concerns about Citi's blueprint. Specifically, the Federal Reserve and Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation said the banks need to refine their so-called living wills to show how they could safely unwind their derivatives portfolios when they next submit plans to regulators in 2025. And, I personally don't think the government should be pushing around even big companies like that, but, ultimately, I do think, you don't want them to be too big to fail and then have the government bail them out, so that's my fault, so that's kind of my fault there, ultimately, I wouldn't be regulating companies like this at all, like I wouldn't be regulating any companies. With that being said, the government does probably give them a fair bit of money, like when they have to bail them out sometimes, and that's my thought on that issue. And we have dynamism, the values that drive innovation, job satisfaction, and economic growth, from hup.harvard.edu by Ninja Lover. And they added, Nobel laureate Edmund Phelps has long argued that the high level of innovation in the lead nations of the West was never a result of scientific discoveries plus entrepreneurship, as Sumter thought. Forever, modern values, particularly the individualism, vitalism, and self-expression prevailing among the people, feel the dynamism needed for widespread indigenous innovation. Yet finding links between nations' values and their dynamism was a daunting task. Now in dynamism, Phelps and the trio of co-authors take it on. And I guess I would agree with that. Ultimately, I do think, the Western tradition of individualism, vitalism, self-expression is ultimately what made the West successful, and that's why I think, they're trying to crack down on it so hard these days, because they want the West to fail. And I think, that is kind of like what's going to happen. Then we have Primera semana sin inflación en Ferdianos, la tercera semana de junio tuvo un 0% de aumento de precios de alimentos, la derecha diario, that's from derechadiario.com by Ninja Lover, and they added, it's in Spanish, I'm not too good at that, but they said, first week without inflation in 30 years, third week of June had a 0% increase in food prices. And I think that's good. Millie showing that economic libertarianism does in fact work. And that's my thoughts there. Then we have Germany. Woman convicted of offending migrant gang rapist receives longer prison sentence than the rapist, from the Publica. And I posted that, and I said, not surprising at this point, sadly. You can do something, do a lot of heinous things, and you won't get charged for it. But if you do a wrong thing, they'll go right after you. And that's my thoughts there. Then we have The Role of Government and the Libertarian Argument for more Progressive Tax Structure by Cal Dog Curmudgeon, a crossword from the Economy subreddit. And I don't know if I'm going to read all the paragraphs I wrote, but yeah, ultimately I think the taxation should be voluntary, and if you want to voluntarily give money to something, you should be able to. But I don't think we should have enforced taxation, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have UAE, abortion now allowed in rape incest cases as new law issued from CajilTimes.com by Ninja Lover, and I didn't comment on that one, but yeah, I'm glad. I personally am more on the pro-choice side, so I definitely would agree with that ruling. Then we have Trump ran up national debt twice as much as Biden, new analysis from Axios.com by Donald Key, and I didn't comment on that one either, but yeah, I definitely don't think Trump or Biden is that good when it comes to liberty, and especially when it comes to how they're just going to throw money around endlessly, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Supreme Court will hear challenge to Tennessee law banning transition care for minors from NYTimes.com by Ninja Lover. And yeah, I personally think, I'm personally more against transgender care for minors. I don't think they can consent to it. But with that being said, I definitely think, I don't know if it should be the government's role in saying what people can and can't do. And then finally, we have the dumbest local government permit I've ever heard of from Plasma 30, and they said, about a decade ago, we have a hurricane roll through town. I woke up and somehow we still had power. Then 10 a.m. rolls around, the power goes out. I hop in the car and drive around. 1 block away, there was a tree across the road and took it down a power line. Our power companies shows up, this chainsaws around 6 p.m. that evening, and they're all just milling along doing nothing. So I ask one of them what's going on. The guy tells me they're not allowed to cut up the tree and start working until the township issues them a permit. Usually it's done verbally, and then the paper copy gets filed in the township the next few business day. And the guy they need to call hasn't answered your cell phone for an hour now, so I can't get power at my house because my power company needs a permit to cut up a tree line across the road. I've never heard of such a thing. And that just goes to show you shouldn't need to ask government permission for anything. Just do what you need to do. And that's my thoughts on that issue. And I think, let's see if there's anything new. I think we're going to wrap it up there. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.